So today, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the origins of London Speech Workshop and also the method. So we've got quite a unique method that we use with clients. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how it came to be. And then what you see here is a sample of some of the kind of work we do with clients. There's some tools that we use, a whole load of tools. So we're going to give you one real concrete tool today, and we'll work through and probably ask for a bit of audience participation and actually one volunteer as well. And then the rest of the time is all about asking us questions. So any little communication niggle or conundrum or just I'd really like another tool for that. Anything from meetings to arguments to getting irritated by your boss and you don't know how to deal with it, just throw it at us because that's the really fun stuff. So we've got lots of time for that. Okay, and this is obviously Jamie, and I'm the founder. Hello. So to begin, I set up London Speech Workshop 9 years ago, and I was actually working as a TV producer at the time, and realized I was going to need some cash. I was designing all these sort of drama series ideas, and I put up 3 ads on Gumtree. It started totally by accident, is the idea. So I put 3 ads up on Gumtree, thought, what are the 3 things I can do? And bought domain names London Speech Workshop, London Script Workshop, and London Acting Workshop. So not much creativity went into it. And London Speech Workshop was the one that took off. And I found myself with lots of accent softening clients, so non-native English speakers who were wanting to feel more confident communicating in English. And when I began, it was really generic, and I was sort of doing stuff out of a book. It wasn't very creative, and I honestly was kind of wondering. I had a philosophy degree, and I'd won an award as a theatre director, and I was like, what am I doing telling people where to put their tongues in their mouths? I was just like, this is weird. And then one day, it all changed, literally in a eureka moment. And I had a client called Damien, and he was French and successful, and we were sitting there, and I was saying to him, you need to be able to find yourself in these words. You need to sort of put yourself here. And then I said, you know what, why are you doing this? You've got a lovely accent. There's loads of wonderful connotations with the gorgeous French accent. You're married to an English woman. You're really successful. And he said to me, that's exactly the problem. I can't find myself in these words. And then I realized that actually it was so much deeper and more profound than I had got before, that for many people, the accent represented a blockage to them being able to be fully themselves in the language. So they were unable to fully share in a congruent way, like the ideas, the inspirations, all their personality through that language, through English. And I realized something else, which was that I could really help. And it was actually the nexus of loads of my interests and loads of my passions, from theatre directing to psychology. I was doing a psychology master's at the time. And I started to create different tools that kind of unlocked the language for each individual that I worked with. And we're going to give you an example of that in a bit, but one of the first tools that I created, and this was all through seeing issues come up with the clients. The first one was realizing that vowels, so that space between 2 consonants, for non-native speakers, there's often an issue with getting a length right. So is it short or is it long? So ship or sheep, which can lead to some challenges. And then what I realized was it's not just about going long. Short, long is the generic, silly, tedious way of doing it. It's actually about an opportunity to show your feelings. So a vowel is a space to put your feelings in. And being able to share a tool like that with a client just suddenly opens it up, because you're not telling them this is the right way to do it. You're saying this is a way to release what you really feel into a word. So it's kind of bang on connected to my theatre directing days. So from there, I got interviewed by the Times newspaper around the royal wedding, so to look at Kate Middleton's speech. And as a result of, there was a double-page spread in the Times, and as a result of that, started getting lots of native English speakers who came with all sorts of things, but essentially thought they wanted elocution. And there was absolutely no way I was going to give them something straightforward elocution, because I didn't believe in it. It's not just an accent. This is so much bigger. It's communication. And so I started to develop more and more tools to do with facial expression or eye contact, simple little routes in to releasing people so that they could find themselves in the language, essentially. So after a few years, all of that, I decided to put all the effective communication stuff into a book. And I did a bigger, longer book and then shrunk it down to size, to a quarter of its size into this book. So this is what is in this book, which many of you have a nice copy of, so hopefully you'll enjoy that. And then there's lots of other stuff about conflict and meetings and all sorts of tools. So that's kind of the origin. Since then, we've been working for 9 years, and Jamie is very much on the front line working with hundreds of clients who are kind of addicted to him. They just, seriously, they come back and back and back.
To me, hasn't it? Cue for song.
So on that note, I'm going to pass you over to Jamie, who's going to give you some examples of how some of these tools have worked with some clients, and then we're going to do some practical. Okay, thank you.
Lovely. Well, you will also be addicted to me by the end of today, one hopes. Otherwise, I shall consider it a complete failure. But the key thing, the one thing I want to add, just as somebody who works with people almost every day, really, is in terms of communication, and I don't know how many people here also feel this, it ought to be the nicest, best thing about being human, did it not? Surely what sets us apart is our ability, potentially at least, to communicate in an extremely sophisticated way. And yet I work with people day after day, not just non-native speakers, but English people as well, who are torturing themselves about communication. So, for instance, I was doing a huge workshop 2 days ago, and this great strapping exec chap who literally said to me, he gets a rush of adrenaline when somebody asks him a question in a meeting and has 3 sleepless nights before giving a presentation. That has to stop. Chat is fun and I simply adore it. And what we're going to look at today, no, I really do, I really love chatting. And the point is, I want everyone else to love it too. And the key thing is that what we have here is, in a sense, tools, but also a sort of formula for how to make sure if you do this and this, you end up with this. Because too often for communication, it's a bit like spinning the roulette wheel. And sometimes you go, I was really good today. And then you spin the roulette wheel and you go, no, that didn't work at all today. Just the stars weren't aligned. And it's about saying a formula. If you do 1, 2, and 3, you end up with 4. And that's what we're going to look at in just a moment, I believe, Miss Serlin.
Great. Yes. So, thank you. So we're going to start with, this is called the intonation technique, and it's a 3-step technique. And it works with, so if you've got a prepared presentation, this works really, really well. So we're gonna share it so that we can all do it. So Jamie's gonna begin.
I can. Now the first thing is, I never do anything technical. I need to appoint a willing volunteer who would like to read. This is as far as audience participation ever goes in this, I promise. And it is just reading out this. So can we have a volunteer, please?
Just to read this out. But you'll read it out.
Do I have to pick a willing volunteer?
So it's, in fact, oh, yay! Brilliant. Well, you come forward. So for this, it's actually, you read it out badly. Like, the worse, the better, because at the end, you're going to read it out again using the tools. So no stress whatsoever. Okay, so I'm going to record you. Would you be able to come here? That would be good. Sorry, is that all right? Thank you so much. Yay, round of applause. So, I just need to find, there we go, voice memos. Okay. Right. And what's your name?
My name's Yash.
Yash, lovely to meet you. Okay, so here we go. We're just going to, I'm going to press record in a minute, and I'd just like you to read this all the way to the bottom. Don't worry about it being good, just any which way, it's fine. Okay? Yeah. Here we go.
I feel that this award was not made to me as a man, but to my work, a life's work in agony and sweat of the human spirit, not for glory, and least of all for profit, but to create out of the materials of the human spirit something which did not exist before. Lovely, round of applause.
Excellent, thank you so much. So we're going to call on you again at the end, but if you want to take your seat again, that's amazing, thank you. Okay.
Thank you very much. Now, very, very basically, in terms of communication, let's define our terms. All communication is, ever was, or ever will be, is simply the effort to get what's in here, in there, in the best possible way. And quite often it's when that stops being the aim of the game, when it turns into some ghastly test of yourself, an exam that you fail, that it all goes down the toilet. So this is the key thing. And if you remember nothing else from today, what I'd love you to remember is this. The task of a good speaker is to do as much of the listener's work for them as you possibly can. And that starts with knowing how words work. Emma's already just touched on this. Words are, after all, the currency of our communication, aren't they? Words are made up of what, chaps? Sounds, hurrah. And two key kinds of sound in particular, vowel sounds and consonant sounds. And the first thing is you need to know what they do for you. Now, somebody very wise once said, and I love this quote, that vowels are a space to put your feelings in. And they're where you get all the colour, the feeling, the meaning in a word. Now, I can demonstrate this better than I can describe it. If I say to you, I want to go home, or if I say, I want to go home, what obviously conveys more feeling to you? Would you try, please, for me, just saying, I want to go home?
I want to go home.
Exactly. Now, the key thing is, you know when you listen to a speaker and you think, I love their voice. They're so expressive. I like listening to them. That's not magic. Mother Nature did not just sprinkle fairy dust over that crib when they were little. This is simply how they're using their vowel sounds. David Attenborough's a master. Have a listen. Now, consonants are different. If vowels are about colour, feeling, meaning, consonants are about precision and clarity. They're about efficiency and respect for the language. They're a bit like if you see a tower block being built and you see the steel frame go up first. Those are your consonants. They keep everything in place and clearly delineated. Now, there's a three-step formula that we look at for intonation, i.e., if you're doing these things, it will sound good. Number one is emphasis. And this is the idea that when we speak, not every word we say is of the same value. So some words are of much greater value to your listener than others. And I always say it's a bit like a highlighter pen. Now, I'm old enough to still not really be able to read off a screen. I have to print it out and read it in front like this. And whenever I'm looking at something and I know I have to come back to it, I just highlight the key words and phrases. And that's exactly what you need to always be doing with your voice. It's like you have a highlighter pen in your voice, and you're highlighting all of the key words for your listener. And the words that you highlight are words that contain information. I'm doing it with my voice now in rather an exaggerated way. So these are the words. If you were popping them into a car, these are the ones in a sentence, all the words in a sentence. You have to put some words in the front seat and some words in the back seat. Now, here we are. If we take each phrase, let's underline the words we would want to put in the front seat. Now, I will do the first one. I feel, I think that's a jolly important word, that this award. Next one is, was not made to me as a man. Suggestions from the floor, please. What shall we underline? Not. Yes, negatives are always important. Man, marvellous. Next one, but to my work. Lovely. A life's work. Splendid. And this is absolutely critical here, because what you're especially telling us is new information. We already know it's your work. It's your life's work. Imagine how ridiculous it would be if you went to see Daniel Craig in his latest incarnation and he said, the name's Bond. James Bond. You'd say, well, yes, I know. He has to emphasize James. Lovely. Life's work. Now, here's a long one. In the agony and sweat of the human spirit, what shall we have, chaps? Agony. Marvellous. Splendid. Excellent. What should we have in this next bit? Not negatives. Yes, glory. And least of all for profit, what do we fancy here? Least. Profit, marvellous. But to create out of the materials of the human spirit, what should we have here? Create. Materials, yes. And what do we have here? I think this one's fairly obvious, yes. And something which did not exist before. Not exist? Yes, I suppose we could have that. Now, let's have a listen. Now, just to prove my point about how some words are of much greater value to your listener than others, just close your eyes for a moment. And I'm going to read you just the about two-thirds to a half of the words that we haven't underlined. If that's for me, tell them I'm busy. And what I'll do is I'm going to read those back to you. And I want you to imagine, if I gave you some paints, would you be able to make any sense of this at all? And could you paint any picture? So just the words that aren't underlined. I that this was made to me as A, but to my A work in thee, and of thee, for and of all for. But to out of thee, something which did before. What sort of a picture did you manage to produce? Very little. Now, let's have a look. Again, close eyes, and let's see what sort of images we can come up with for the one-third to a half of the words we have underlined. Here we go. Feel award, not man, work, life's, agony, sweat, human spirit, not glory, least profit. Create materials, human spirit, not exist. Can you see how much clearer that is in terms of just the images you can have? So that's our first top tip. And now, my glamorous assistant will now tell us the next two steps on our little odyssey.
Great. Thank you. That was
Pleasure.
lovely. So the idea of this tool as well, just to add to the brilliant stuff Jamie said, is that you can choose. So it can be every word that sort of has money or value, or it can be a selection, and it's up to you. But as long as you are choosing and consciously placing them in the head of your listener or your audience, that's what starts to give you control over the landscape that's being built in their head. So step number 2 is pauses. And this is the idea that we don't talk in very long sentences like this that start at the beginning and go to the end, which have loads of thoughts in them, and you never stop so no one can keep track with you, like that. We use pauses and we speak in units. So there's a kind of balanced sense of taking your listener by the hand and walking at a pace that works for them and for you. So there's a sort of a flow, like a phrasing in music. So here we are. If we take that idea and put it here, again, let's do it with everyone. Finding the first pauses. And again, there's a sort of, it's not absolute. There's not the right way to do it. There's a sense of feeling it out as well. So the first pause I'll do, and then we can do the rest together. So I feel that this award, so we can put one there. Thank you. Now, my glamorous systems, both very glamorous. So next one, I feel that this award, who's got an idea where the next one could be? Was not made to me as a man. Perfect. Next one. But to my work. Absolutely. Next one. A life's work. Brilliant. Next one. In the agony and sweat. Absolutely. Of the human. So we always do full stops, obviously, of the human spirit. And next. Glory. Not for glory. Perfect. And least of all for profit. Next. Can people see it? But to create out of the, so I'll do the whole thing, but to create out of the materials of the human spirit, so we can probably divide that up a bit. Yeah, so we've got some different options there, but, create, and materials, and all of them can work, that's the thing. So it's about what you want to frame and place in your listener's mind. So to show you what that would look like, but, for example, or but to create, for example, or but to create out of the materials. So do you see, it's about what you decide to put in. If you decide to put a whole lot of words in, you're reducing the value, the energy you can give to each individual word, which means that if you've got a really important word, and Barack Obama's, all of his inauguration speeches way back when are really good to listen to for this, because he would say such important things, he'd do them in sentences of 2 or 3 words, and he'd get the impact. And if you do any more, if you do complex words in like a sentence of 7 words, people will just get lost. The brain can't sort of hold on to it, figure it out, and listen to the next sentence. So let's go for create. Thank you. So, but to create, and then another one. Great, spirit. And then this final one, I'll read it all out and see if we want any in between. Something which did not exist before. So we could do that in one. Do you want any? Something. Yeah, we could do something. Brilliant. So that's the idea of pausing. Now, it's not enough to just pause, because if you do just pause and you don't put anything in the units, we call it justifying the pause. If you don't justify the fact that you're putting in a pause, it can just sound like you're stopping, starting, stopping, starting. So I'll give you an example. I feel that this award was not made to me as a man, but to my work, a life's work. You can see what I mean, right? So we actually have to fill the space in between those two pauses, fill that unit with something, with some color, with some intonation. Now, we call this, we've got all these funny phrases at London Speech Workshop, and we call this one a psychological hook. And the idea is that if you've got a little puppy on a leash and it's wandering off, you're just tugging at the attention. So that's the attention of your listener. So we want a little hook in each unit to make sure that you've got people, okay? And it's the difference between me going, Jamie, and I could do it without the look, Jamie, but he's going to perk up.
He did.
He did. So you see, I'm doing something with my voice, and it's literally going up and down. And if we just isolate it as a sound, I go, like a hook. So that's what we want to do within a unit. So for example here, I feel that this award, rather than I feel that this award. So can you hear where I'm doing it here? I feel that this award. And you could also do it there. I feel that this award, but you see it's having a slightly different effect. Now that is, you don't have to get like overly into the science of it because it needs to be intuitive. But when you've got your presentation, you'll know what's really important to me. What do I really want to get into my listeners' minds? And that's what you underline. And actually, Barack Obama, I was going to say we didn't train him, which is a ridiculous thing to say, but if you look at one of his speeches, there's all of these underlined points, like he has annotated his speech in this kind of way because it works, because if you know what you want to get into your listener's head, it's going to get there. So it's really nice advice. So to carry on, another point to make is that if for some reason you need to buy yourself some time, so if you've let's say got a splodge of ink on your presentation and you're trying to figure out, what that word is, or, trying to figure out what you're going to say next, you can overly work one unit, but if you work it with intonation, people will just think, oh, they really mean that. So for example, I feel that this award was not made to me as a man, but to my work. So obviously I'm going really slowly there, but you can, if you work it, you can sort of break it open in a way, rather than, I feel that this award was not made to me as a man, but to my work. Because you guys aren't going to get that. And I'm not going to have any opportunity to put my feelings or my vision and what matters to me into the words if I just say it really quickly. So, with that in mind, let's actually, it's quite fun, we'll just do a little bit just with the top row. What we'll do is one unit each. And so just to get the idea of a hook, okay? So I'll start, and then if you go next, and we go along, if that's all right with you. And we'll just enjoy putting some, like a psychological hook into each unit. So, I feel, and you can pass the mic on. Thank you, Rob. I feel that this award, can you see it?
Was not made to me.
Oh, yeah, all the way to, sorry, I should have said all the way to the end of the pause, but that was brilliant.
Was not made to me as a man, but to my work, a life's work in me.
Good. So if you carry on from there.
Life's work. In the agony and sweat of the human spirit.
Great.
Up there.
Not by the army. of all for profit.
But to create out of the materials of the human spirit,
which did not exist before.
Lovely. Thank you. Okay, brilliant. Yash, would you please come to the front? Okay. Right. You ready?
I think so.
Why don't you have a little practice run, and then we'll record, okay? So what we want to do is just really enjoy each unit and putting something in, some kind of little intonation hook in each unit, okay? And obviously you put the pause in at each time there's a line. Okay.
All right, sure thing. I feel that this award was not made to me as a man, but to my work, a life's work, in the agony and sweat of the human spirit, not for glory, and least of all for profit.
And I'm going to stop you there because this is so good, we might as well just record. Okay. Yeah? Ready from the top?
Yeah.
Really good. Okay.
I feel that this award was not made to me as a man, but to my work, a life's work, in the agony and sweat of the human spirit, not for glory, and least of all for profit, but to create out of the materials of the human spirit something which did not exist before.
Wow. That was fantastic. Thank you so much. That was wonderful. Okay, so do you want to you do the next bit. You're gonna.
Oh, yes, of course.
Okay.
Okay, so I was
The three
enjoying that so much.
questions.
Just one tiny thing I'd add to it. Key thing I think often that's missing when people think about communication and they get into that rabbit in the headlights mode is that you end up reading the news rather than telling us a story. Now, who here has read a story to a child ever in their lives? Right. Now, my nephew, Bertie, is 4 years old. Well, he's 5 now, but he was 4 at Christmas. They are, you can corroborate this, I'm sure, the most merciless critics in the world, are they not? Because if they're bored, they just get up and they go. No filter, they are bored. And so when I was reading Bertie's story, I was aware I was trying to keep his little 4-year-old attention span on the story. And quite instinctively, I was emphasising the key words and upping my energy and really trying to use my voice to paint some pictures, because otherwise he's out of there. And my discovery, or our discovery at London Speech Workshop, is just this. All adults are grown-up children. They will still be bored and want to leave the room, but socially and professionally, they're no longer entitled to say so or do so. Now, of course, I'm not suggesting that you speak to all of your colleagues and clients as if they are 4 years old, whether they deserve it or not. But the principle remains the same, because as adults, we're still drawn to speakers who tell us stories, and that's the key thing. Now, whenever we listen back, and we're going to listen back now, Anne, is that right? 3 questions. Because you must never, ever slag off the speaker, because everyone, when you hear yourself, everyone always just goes, oh, my God, I can't believe I sound like that, can't believe I look like that. Key thing is you focus entirely on you as the listener, and you ask yourself just the following 3 questions. Number 1, how much does the speaker value what he's saying? 2, how much does the speaker value me as their listener? And then finally, does the speaker make me care? And that's it. And I think what we're going to do is listen back to both those recordings and we'll ask ourselves those 3 questions. You're so much better at writing on the board than me. Have you noticed? Look, now the other one took me ages. And it was my 2nd attempt. There we are. Lovely.
Okay. I'm going to write these out so you can have them at the end. But yeah, let's do
Yes,
that.
let's.
Thank you.
I feel that this award was not made to me as a man, but to my work, a life's work in agony and sweat of the human spirit, not for glory, and least of all for profit, but to create out of the materials of the human spirit something which did not exist before. I feel that this award was not made to me as a man, but to my work, a life's work, in the agony and sweat of the human spirit, not for glory, and least of all for profit, but to create out of the materials of the human spirit something which did not exist before.
Yay! Lovely.
Great.
Emma.
Okay, so the three questions correspond with the communication equation, which is the name of the first book, which is A, for authenticity. So that is, how much does the speaker care about what they're saying? Are they authentic? Do they care? Do they value it? 2 is C, for connection. So how much do they care about their listeners and their audience? Now, if A and C, or authenticity and connection, or I care about what I'm saying and I care about you, if that's there, you get E for engagement, which is the listener cares. So let's ask the audience for listening to Yash. He was brilliant. Thank you again. So in the first recording, what do we think? How much did the speaker value what they were saying in the first recording? Not that much.
He didn't really, it was his first time reading it, I think, so he didn't really know the flow that well.
Yeah. So it's absolutely, it's about our impression as well. So it's not like Yash just didn't care, because actually he probably didn't care that much differently from either one to the other. Like, it was just a piece of recording. He was like surprised in front of loads of people. But it's about our perception, because if we feel he cares, we're going to care. But yeah, so good point. So not very much at the beginning. Any ideas of why that was? Like, what gave us that sense that the speaker didn't care very much at the beginning?
It was quite monotone and flat.
Monotone and flat. Absolutely, yeah.
I think it was a lack of context.
And lack of context. Okay, yeah. Great. What about number 2? So did you get the sense that the speaker cared about you, the listener, in the first one? Not really. No. It didn't reach out. Yeah? And, oh, the mic's gone. Now it's back. Wow. And then finally, so how much did you care in the first one about what you were listening to? Not very much. Second one, how much do you feel that the speaker cared about what they were saying? A lot more. And what do you think gave that impression to you? Like, what was the feeling?
Because there was more passion in the words.
More passion. Anything else? There's no right or wrong here, I'm just curious. More punchy, yeah.
More rhythm.
More rhythm.
Emphasis.
And emphasis, yeah. And actually, all of that is more energy. Because when we give our energy to something, it's our way of, like, whatever we do, it's our breath. It's the way we show we value something. So it's like, actually, this is just a device for putting your energy into words. Brilliant. So how much did you feel the speaker cared about you, the listener, in the second one?
A lot more.
Yeah. We won't go into why, but there's a general sense that he cares more. Good. And as a result, honestly, did you care more? Did you engage more with the text in the second one? Yeah. Okay. Good. Well, that's the right answer. So but really it works. Like, that's the point. It's simple steps, and what you're doing, what we asked Yash to do, is very mechanical. It's just pauses. It's an intonation hook with your voice. You can do it on an entirely fresh text. You do not need to know the text. You don't need to, the weird thing is you don't need to know the context. I think you said context. But it gives the impression that you know the context and that you care. So that's why this works. Have you got any more to add on that?
What I would say, the key thing for me is simply that the second one sounds like it's being read for me. So you're reading this for my benefit, and it's no longer just a test of you reading this out. And that's absolutely vital, because that immediately makes me hook into it. Later on, we have an exercise when we're doing non-verbals, which we won't get to do today, and we tell a story 2 different ways. Absolutely true, done this hundreds of times, and for every client it's the same. I can do the first one completely blank, and you'll get nothing, and then I will tell exactly the same story, same words exactly, but this time really engaging with my voice and physically. And do you know what people do every time? All right, yeah. It's a literally thing, I've just told you this, and everyone's the same. But all I'm doing is I'm telling you, you will engage with this. I'm going to hook, hook, hook. It's so powerful, genuinely. There you are. That's my input.
And that's the thing. It's the whole point of all of these things. Like Jamie said at the beginning, it's not magic dust. It's simple techniques of using our own toolbox, which is eyes, hands. I mean, everyone has it. Like, no one's stuck with a monotone voice or a mouth that won't open or a tongue that moves. No, that was great exit. We've even got a broken
I valued the way you dropped that. I valued it. Do you know, that's just what would happen to me. Bless your heart.
That's brilliant. That's a good exit. Good. So that's a little sample of the kind of work that we do, but hopefully a tool that you can use for yourselves. Now, questions. Open the floor to questions. So really, the meatier, the better. Or even if you're like, I don't even know if I can be bothered to ask this, ask it. Great. Oh.
So it really sounds like you can only be a great speaker if you're passionate about what you talk. What's your advice on speaking about boring?
Do you want to start with this?
Well, do you know, that's a jolly good one. And I tell you why, it comes right back to here. Because imagine you have to discuss something awfully boring. And it's just, you think, I'm not personally absolutely delighted with this information. If you go into it in that view, that is what your listener will feel. Now, it's still authentic because there'll be some part of you in a work presentation that thinks, I have to get this over. This is part of my job, and I value my job. And this information, dull as ditch water though it may be, will actually nevertheless have to be conveyed in an interesting way. But if you break that equation, A, for authenticity, I value what I'm saying, and I value you as my listener, down the toilet. In fact, you've got to work doubly as hard when it's dull as ditch water. Because you've got to think, I've got to hook you in somehow by hook, line, and sinker, I will get you in. And that's when the technical actually really helps.
And just to add, that's where the intonation technique is really useful, because you can literally mark in your pauses, mark in literally the key words, the front seat words, and fake it. If we can find our integrity with it, so our reason for doing it, why are we motivated, what do we value, and it could be as much as, I'm proud of my team, or if you can find that, brilliant. Sometimes you can't, but you still want to engage, you still have the connect piece. So it's like finding that, because what we're wanting is, in an ideal world, you're going to care. But if you don't, but you care about them and you want them to be engaged, that's enough for you to put the A in for yourself.
Hi, just a question. So a lot of what you're saying, like mark it in, highlight it, it works well, I guess, if you've got a script or something you're reading from. But if you're making or like talking about a new topic or something you haven't done before, what advice do you have on how you can apply those same principles but in that context?
Very good question. We've got a whole, that's like session 2 in our 10-session course. So no, but it's a really good question. Jamie, you start and then I'll add as well.
Sure. I mean, for me, I always try and make it session 2 and session 3 because it's a really important thing, because it's a perfectly valid thing to say, now listen, Mush, it's all very well. When you've got this lot here, of course it sounds better the second time when I've circled bits and underlined bits and read it 3 times. But how do I get that into when I'm speaking off the cuff? Now, without going into an enormous amount of detail, each one of these is this unit. And each one has to be landed with care and with energy. So, for instance, I'm going to use a pen. Excuse me. I would like to hand you this biro, and I should like you to take it. Now, what feels more like I value this? I've got a really good idea. Or does it feel more valued when I do this? I've got a really good idea. And it simply doesn't land because you're already often off the cuff thinking of the next thing you have to say. So we start with this idea of landing the thought, so really valuing it. And the key thing that I notice when I'm working with people and getting them from this into off-the-cuff speech It's that they think about their presentation as like a mountain that they have to pole vault over, and they go, oh my God, I'm never going to get over that mountain. You think, well, no, you won't in one go. But it's this one little step at a time, and it's the same thing when you're speaking off the cuff. It's also really good when you start working on speed of delivery issues for people who get really, really fast when they are presenting because they're nervous. But I won't go on to that because someone else may have a question about it. Thank you very much.
Question.
Do. May I have my pen?
Yes.
Thank you.
So you mentioned you have to do as much of the listening for the other person as possible. Can you elaborate what you mean by that?
In terms of the work for the listener, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. It was a jolly good question. It was saying that one of the things I said is we have to do the work for the listener as much as we possibly can. Now, the ways you do that are actually the ways we've looked down here. So, number one, I'm telling you what words are important through emphasis. So that does a lot of the work for you. So, for instance, if I say to you, I never said you stole my hat, I can give you 7 different meanings of that sentence through emphasis alone. I never said you stole my hat. She did. I never said you stole my hat, I said he did. Can you see, just through emphasis, you're actually not only giving your listener the words, you're giving them an interpretation of the words. That's why this helps. Next thing, pauses. So when we speak, we don't speak in big, long sentences and never come to an end, because if we did, it'd be really difficult for the listener, really difficult for the speaker, because everything turns into one long stream of consciousness without it being in the middle or end. I've just made your life really hard there. You've managed it, but you're trying to follow me, going, just about got it, okay. But you're going to give up on me after a while of doing that. So hence, giving you this in bite-sized chunks is a bit like spoon-feeding the baby. Now, once you're spoon-feeding the baby with one piece of information at a time and telling you where the key information is, you find that just as a listener, your job has become a lot easier than saying, I want to get this done as fast as possible and finish. That makes sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Fabulous. Sorry, that was a jolly long answer.
Question here.
Yes, I was wondering, how can one reduce the number of ers and ons?
Oh, that's a good one.
When you speak?
So a good technique for that is coming back to this idea of delivery. So that's sort of with the response of off the cuff. That if you speak in each unit and you're thinking about a unit at a time and you're delivering it, then you arrive at a pause rather than oh my God, I've got to say loads of things, I've got this whole long thought and I've got to get to it, and oh my God, now I'm stranded in the middle of a sentence. So it breaks it down. It's like a ladder. It's a steady rung by rung. And in this idea of delivery, and also getting physical with it, it grounds you in each moment because you're breaking it down. And because the mind comes up with your ums and your ahs when you feel stranded and you're going, what can I come up with next? And there's this pressure to sort of pick an idea that's in your head somewhere. Whereas actually you don't need to do that because you can just do, oh, I'm here. I'm present in the one comment or the one thought that I have to say now, and I've delivered it. Oh, and another one's come. And, so it's that giving the message of that to your brain, both through your intonation, so it's kind of landing it, and through this concept of connecting and delivering, takes away the pressure, and it actually gives you more space to think. And the other little tip for that is also the vowels. So elongating your vowels, rather than saying a word really quickly, and then your thought process is at the end of the word, where you go, you can go, and saying a word really quickly, and you've just given yourself thinking time. Helpful. Good.
Do you have any recommendations for how to teach this to children? So it's the sort of thing which I wish I had learned at school. So if you had a class of 12, 13, 14-year-olds, how would you teach it to them?
That's an interesting question.
Yeah, that is a good question.
I think I probably need to sit down and create a new book. But we've got a sort of a lovely little, one of our tools is based on a poem called Jabberwocky. And I actually created that with an 11-year-old and then was like, this is great for adults. So, but they've got a different mindset and a different attention span. So it's about gamifying things a lot, and which actually, as Jamie said, it's communicating with an adult. When you think of them as a big child who's slightly more polite, it's actually a good route in, because with our clients, we gamify everything. There's a before and an after, and it all becomes very relaxed and fun, like we did with Yash, rather than, right, we taught you the technique, get it right now. So again, like that psychology of just lightening up, taking the pressure off is good.
I have a question maybe particular to non-English speakers. If a question, if a word is not coming to your mind, especially if you're not as good with the language, are there any tricks or any ways to go around it so that you can entertain the person a bit more while you think?
Do you know, that's a blooming good one. I think that's an excellent question. Can I just respond to that just quickly with this one? Now, the key thing about speaking off the cuff that I notice is this. You've got to understand that when you speak off the cuff, it's completely different from when you've written something down. And people seem to judge it by the same criteria and judge it jolly harshly. Now, the USP, the unique selling point of written communication, is that it is polished, edited, and logical. And therefore, you can come back to it perfect. You can polish and polish it. That is not the USP of speaking. And yet I watch people give presentations, and clearly what they are attempting to do is attempting to dictate the perfect email in one go, and they will punish themselves if they cannot manage this. This is unfair. I absolutely call the ref, because this is not allowed, because that's not the point. No, the USP, I mean, for instance, if you sent me an email and it had ... and abandoned sentences and an illogical structure and grammatical errors, I think, now come along. Read it through before pressing send and tidy it up. But I never think that when you just speak to me. Of course I know sometimes you'll struggle to find that word, and that's not the end of the world, because the USP of verbal communication is that it's interactive and spontaneous and engaging. That's its USP. So of course, if it doesn't come out in beautifully elegant phrases and completely fluent, that's fine. That's not really the point. It just has to engage me and take me on a journey. So that's the first thing.
And I will just, brilliant, I agree. And I will just add to that, see, and also I say Steve, lots of ums. A really good thing that I love is owning it, owning that space where you're looking for the word. Because you're looking, it's your word, and it's your idea, and it's your sort of perfectly formed, it's going to be, the apple's going to drop from the tree and land. And so giving it, rather than going, oh, you know, white headlights, panic, or rabbit in headlights, I can't think of the word. It's actually, you know, it can be this wonderful, pregnant pause of finding that word. And I remember an example, when I worked as a theatre director, I remember I would get a moment where I'd be like, oh, there's something here. And I remember going, like, having a rehearsal process and then going, stop, there's something here. And then my mind went blank. And I was like, this is funny. Everyone's watching me going, you know, what's she going to come up with? This sort of wonderful bit of creative vision. And I was just like, and then I just, because I could, I just sat in it. And after about 5 seconds, the idea started to come in, and I delivered it. Now, if I had panicked at that blank, and it was total blankness for those 5 seconds, but if I'd panicked, as we can easily do under the pressure of a conversation, like, nothing would have happened, and, you know, I would have lost status in the room or whatever. But actually, so it's about enjoying that moment of just going, it's going to land, and trusting it. And it's your vision. So even if it's not the word that a native English speaker would use, it's yours.
It's the thought that happens during the pause. I can only say the thought that happens for me. I always think, for me, if I can't think of the word, the thought in my head has to be, no, just let me find the perfect word. Not just any word, because you're worth more. Let me find, as opposed to, dun 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 dun, I'm a bad communicator, dun 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 dun, fail. Get rid of that. That helps absolutely nobody. Good.
Good. We have, I think, 6 minutes left. So if there's any more questions, got 6 minutes.
What about if you're short of time? Like you always have, like in presentations, you might have only 5 minutes to actually tell a good story. What if you only have that 5 minutes and you have to go like really quickly tell the whole story? Is there any tips or tricks for that?
I would say working out which bits of the story. It's not about doubling your speed. because as we know, if you don't put anything, if you don't get it into their heads, they're going to walk away going, well, that's 6 minutes that's wasted. Yeah. So actually it's about you going, what are the key points? And being in there, enjoying it. And the other thing, and we haven't really been able to talk about it much today, but there's one of our metaphors is about creating a landscape in your listener's head. And so you can engage physically. You can sort of, this is over here and that idea is there, and then we've got sort of this here. So you can, by doing that, by moving around, you can actually imprint the different ideas. And you might be like, there's 3 salient points I want to land there. Get those points in rather than...
Yeah, excessive speed never works. It's a huge misnomer about saying, I've got a lot of information. I know I'll say it really fast. This is just not good. Because, go back to the very first thing we said, the whole point is getting information from here in there, not getting information from here out. Because if that were the case, speaking quickly would be a wonderfully effective way of doing it. But it's not. It's not. Oh, yes.
I'm going to ask a tough question, and I guess we're probably more curious. What is the best way to manage anger or something like that when you're trying to communicate, not getting flustered in a debate with someone else?
Ooh, good one.
You have your words around you.
Good one. Emma, you'd be best for this.
Context of if you're getting negative feedback from a manager or having to give negative feedback, how do you hold that emotion?
So I'm actually really passionate about this stuff. I did training in San Francisco called Nonviolent Communication, and it does what it says on the tin, but it's beautiful, like really, really beautiful. And it's based on this work from this therapist, Carl Rogers, and then someone called Harvey Rosenberg created it. And there are some ideas from that. This is actually all in the book as well. So step 1 is knowing about breathing. So your first reaction, that heat that we get when something happens that gets us mad, is like the part of our brain that is basically very basic. It's animal. And that's where it goes to. It's like our amygdala. If we wait, because it takes about 5 seconds to move into your cortex, so to move into the sophisticated part where you can go, okay, let's figure this out, what's going on. So you just have to wait. First thing, wait 5 seconds. And if you can breathe during those 5 seconds, even better. Rather than, I'll wait 5 seconds. So you breathe it out. And then when that 5 seconds have passed, a really good tip from nonviolent communication is trying to figure out what's going on for them. So, and then figuring out what's going on for you. So one of the lines in it is, be an advocate of your own and the other person's values. So if they're mad at you because they're like, this is late again, and I've had enough, and what are you doing? You're doing this to wind me up, and your reaction is, no, it's not all about you. I've had this, and this deadline, which you asked me for, or whatever. So you breathe. And then it's like, right, what is going on for them? Actually, is this because their value is, I have to get things on time for my senior boss, and it puts me into a panic if I don't get what I've asked for, or is it stress at home, or whatever. So just that process of asking, and not necessarily getting to the right answers, gets you into a place of towards empathy, towards compassion, and also towards these feelings and this heat may not actually be the whole story. And once you're at that, it's so much easier to be able to ask them a question, or to go, okay, and what was going on for me? Actually, this heat is because I'm working really hard and I don't feel I'm getting the recognition I want. Well, that's actually something else. That's from, so you can start to separate, take the heat out, and then from that place, it's communication. And questions are so powerful. So it might just be, depending on what the situation is, it might be, I'm not sure I understood before how important this was, but can you just explain to me this and this, just so I get it? Or is it because this and this? Or, so it's just that gentle digging can just take, also if they've come to you with anger, can just take the wind out of their angry sails.
With that, please join me in a massive round of applause for Emma.